Was that? What do you want to hear repeatedly on the radio?
Speaking of making the work, Squatic finally making some inroads here on behalf of.
Absolutely gets in the back. Shadows.
Oh my!
Oh,
Hello?
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 Uh-oh.
Hello?
Blur? Hello?
I don't think there's time. They're not gonna get back in touch. Nobody's noticed. No.
33% to a bomb, but media sitting with 3 ultimates, 4 ultimates of their own. This next fight.
They can follow up a little bit of aggressive ball. This protect could be used. I think this is everybody. He does.
The anti-nade came through, and as much as we saw, this is dirty. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Altian popping it on everyone. The long spawns and overtime.
Wow.
Actually. It looks like look at Killer Talks. Oh my god! Look at triple. Look at these different. I need coming out. Terrible. Try and take up the different. Let's get it. Oh, there's a tip.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the last game from the ladder stage here in the Raving Mad Gamers Last Man Standing tournament. I'm Ultrism. Joining me is Sun Phoenix here for our game Enigma versus DYG.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's an interesting matchup, and I guess often interesting is a euphemism for bad, but in this case, I mean it for what it says. There's some permutations here, Altruism, and anybody who's heard me cast before knows just how much I love permutations. But anytime SP has to whip out his spreadsheet and figure things out, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But that's where we're at here with the Raving Mad Gamers Last Man Standing League. And it is Enigma taking on DYG, but just to run you through the permutation. If DYG win here today with any score, Team Gaming will go through. Now, I know you're feeling like, where did Team Gaming come from? Well, that's where we're at here. Team Gaming is currently placed 5th in the standings. The top 4 go through. If Enigma cop a loss here, that's going to promote Team Gaming to 4th position and allow them to go through to the semis, which start next week. DYG is out of the running here, so they really are playing for pride and for the pride of Team Gaming. But this is a match they're going to want to win nonetheless.
Oh, of course, I think no team ever wants to go into a game wanting to lose it unless they've got some sort of backhanded thing organized with Enigma right now, or with DYG. Sorry, with the other Team Gaming. But I doubt that that's the case. Instead, they're coming through here with all the energy that they can muster to bring into this, not for their own personal sakes, but to prove that, hey, we actually deserve to be in this competition. We were here for a reason, and we can take any match that we need to. Enigma, though, has a lot to play for. Now, as after all the weeks that we've been running through this competition, you do not want to be dropping out just before those semi-finals that we're going to be going to next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Enigma, a little bit struggling this year. I was saying to someone the other day that I've almost lost a little bit of faith in Enigma, having seen their play recently. They're on paper quite a strong team and a team that should be in this top 4 quite comfortably, but struggling to really take a fight to the other teams in this top 4 now. That said, we haven't seen them play against OG, which is the third other team in the top 4, so it remains to be seen how they perform. But looking at how Team Gaming and OG performed in their match on Friday, it's hard to look at the way Team Gaming's performed in the recent past and think how well of a fight they're going to put up to those two teams specifically. So for me, Team Enigma have something to prove here, and beating DYG is a first step onto the path of restoring my faith in this team. It's a result they should be fairly comfortable in getting, given the recent results of these two teams. But DYG, or the couple of new players here, have every potential to kind of force their way through if Enigma's not on song today.
And you talk about Enigma should be a team that really should be at the top there. And if you look at their roster, what a team that should be coming through. I mean, these are names that we know very, very well. I mean, you and I have casted these guys so many times. On your tank lineup, you've got Blur and Vertigo. And those guys unanimously, constantly sitting there with very good team plays, very good possession of space in the game. You've got Miniteg, who's constantly been such a good DPS coming through. They're backed up by Jelly Doodle. And then Fluffy and Toxin Socks, not shy in that support role, always being able to give such good synergy towards their team, back up the tanks who are going to be diving back into the back line and keeping them alive and keeping the team feeling pretty comfortable. So that on paper, these 6 are really, really strong. Yeah,
and that's why you're disappointed if they're not top 3 or fighting with the top 2 teams, is because this roster is super strong. Blur, champion main tank in 2019 with Goliath Gaming, P1 in the VS Gaming Championship that year. No slouch on that main tank role. And last year spent some time with Layden, kind of flitted about, does a lot of coaching, of course. So you'd expect him to come, and is quite close with all the people on the team. You'd expect him to slot in here quite nicely, but I think losing Stalker was a bit of a shift for this team in that main tank role. Obviously, Vertigo, the queen of Peel herself, one of the best off tanks in the country. Jelly Doodle, Minitech, 2 of the best DPS. Toxin Socks and Fluffy, maybe 2 of the best flex supports, but of course they can't both play flex support here. But really a super strong roster, and just waiting for this team to hit their stride, find the rhythm, and push towards the top of the table.
Exactly. Blur, with all that coaching experience, should have the ability, like, he's definitely got the right mind for it. And, you've got the mechanical skills to back it up. Minitake, very well known for hitting ridiculous shots with a Hanzo, 5 players on his own without any sort of setup from the team. Stuff like that should be able to carry a team through. Gonna have to overcome DYG, though, coming through with Seraphim and Kindred on those top 2 tank roles. Seraphim, obviously a well-known player in his own right there. Kiri and Chaotic going to be coming through as your DPS duo, and Donny May and Static again. Pretty well-known supports, and can they tie it together well enough to take out Enigma with these big names?
Yeah, 2 new players on the squad from what we've seen before, Kindred and Static. Now, I'm pretty sure this is the same Static, but if I'm wrong, then I stand corrected. But this is the same Static, I think, that used to play for, I want to say, he played for XTC back in the day. We're talking like 2018, 2017, around that time. As I want to say a main support as well, and he did a short stint on Noobs Inc., which God, if you were around at the time, you're going, oh my God, remember those teams?
I remember that. Yeah, that's a name that rings a bell, I must admit.
Yes, yeah, and so HTC most people remember, but Noobs Inc. was kind of the proto Beastie Boys in some ways, where they were taking the fight to Energy Eden at the time, and I think that might have been There was someone on that team who used to be the support for NG. Anyways, that's by the by. He's been around, but he took some time out, was playing a lot of Quake Champions, if memory serves. But now he's back here with Dynacor Gaming. Dynacor Gaming has a habit of taking out the shovel and digging up some old players here to slot into their roster. And then Kindred is a player I've never seen or heard of before, so interested to see how they perform here on the off tank. But the real standout of this team is obviously going to be Kiri on that DPS role. He's the guy you look at. He's going to be the big playmaker going up against Jelly Doodle and Miniteg in this game. Very, very competent hit scan and one you can really build your team around. I've criticized this team in the past for being kind of flippy-floppy with their roles and their rosters, and I'm interested to see whether they've changed that coming into this year, or whether they're still quite fluid with who they run on what day in what role. So that remains to be seen over the course of this year. I believe this roster is one they ran in their first match as well, so hopefully a bit of consistency there. But I'm excited to see if they can take the fight to Enigma here. But they did just come off a 3-0 loss to Overtime, a team who on paper we would have expected them to beat quite comfortably. So they're coming in here with something to prove over and above the fact that Enigma is on paper a much stronger team.
You know, the flippy floppy allows you to try out new strategies that maybe your opponents haven't seen before, but I think that they're going to have to be very hard pressed in terms of how they approach this. When you've got someone like Miniteg and Jelly Doodle who can get consistent picks, you cannot afford to have too fluid of a lineup, because then you end up getting out of position. Maybe a random Hanzo arrow hits you past the shields of your tanks. You've got Blur and Vertigo who can make a very aggressive play into your lineup, and if your team is not cohesive enough because they're not trained enough together, then you're going to fall apart. You're going to just be flattened, and Moses is going to part the seas. Or when I say Moses, we're talking about Blur, the prophet in his own right, being able to just split a team apart like that. And so you've got to watch out for being too fluid, you know, and being adaptable, very important. But not having a game plan, not having synergy around where we're playing, how we're playing, certain points that we want to defend, it can come back and bite you.
Yeah, but that is, of course, talking about the old Leighton squad. We can't make that comparison with DYG yet. We just don't know. Could be the same, could be different. We haven't seen enough footage of them. This is actually going to be the first time we see Dynacor Gaming playing here as we jump into Oasis. But I think it's comparing Blur to Moses is going to ruffle a lot of feathers, Ultras. We don't even know. But I'm excited to see what these two teams bring here, especially when we start on Oasis.
You know, Oasis, this is, like always, with our control point maps, this is where teams start to find out what the other team is doing. It starts to get them to shake off a little bit of that rust if they haven't played in a while, if they haven't warmed up properly. This is the time to do it. But it really gets you a good idea of what your opponents are trying to run. We've got someone like Chaotic, who's very well known on a Pharah. And Pharah is not a player, not a character that every team runs. And so some teams not always aware of how to play around something like that. So if you can get Chaotic and Kiri being able to come through with that Pharah and Tracer duo that we are seeing in this matchup, that they have run a couple of times before. I've seen both of these players. If they can do that and there's no shutdown or no answer from Team Enigma, they could come out ahead in this, and Enigma is going to have to use this control point to try and adapt to what they're doing. Instead, Enigma are going to be coming around with a much more static composition, you know, taking that May to control the space, going up onto the high ground quite quickly, using Toxin Socks with that speed boost. Static not going to be getting his team. Instead, they're going to be using the mobility of their lineup to flank around, just scout out where Enigma is, and jumping down to the back line. Chaotic gets a couple of nice rockets into the front line, but in the open, doesn't have a lot of support for him, does manage to find a little bit of safety, but now being pinned down there underneath, and Kindred going to force the rest of Enigma off the high ground. Still Chaotic staying in the air. Does cost him his mercy though, and the rest of Enigma now starting to pick apart this mobile team comp that's not coming in a unified fashion.
Yeah, this is a tough comp to play into here for both teams, actually. Kind of two different compositions with two different philosophies. Enigma want to play stable, they want to slowly slice off members and chop you apart, whereas Dynacor want to split you up, play a bit more of a chaotic style, no pun intended, and kind of find pickoffs of anyone who's out of position and force you out of position using the ball and the Pharah. But they've looked at what happened in their first team fight and decided they're going to match Enigma here. Now, I always question if a weaker team matches a better team. You kind of want to give yourself something else to work with, but let's see if Dynacor can pull it off here.
And you know, especially when you're coming in with that ultimate disadvantage, it's going to make it difficultly. Chaotic nearly pins him in the corner, or pins him nicely in the corner, but is it a case of you're stuck in here with us, or are we stuck in here with you? Because Enigma turns it around. They fight with their backs to the wall and turn it around with mechanical skill and good synergy to be able to hold it up to 50%.
Yeah, 50% and 0 ultimates up for Dynacor Gaming here. That's what you lose. You mentioned at the start of the fight, but when you switch compositions like this, you're in trouble, because now you're trying to match this, and they've got all their ultis. The High Noon, the Window here, and Blur almost add another ulti. In fact, all 6 of the players in Enigma ready to go here. They're going to start with the Window.
When you've got something like a Window and a High Noon manages to get some great value taking out Chaotic's May, and so the wall comes up, and again Enigma coming into this, again another huge ultimate thrown down. That Earth Shudder shuts out the rest of the fight that Enigma was arguably winning already.
Yeah, it is probably not necessary, but with 80% on the clock, you're fighting with a Blizzard here, and you've got the self-destruct, and you've got a sound barrier. Kindred's going to have to do some magic here to bail this team out of this one with the self-destruct. But if Seraphim can build up his ulti, and they can chunk through Blur's shield, there's still something to play here for here with Dynacor Gaming, and if they get the flip, they're in a pretty good position.
And there goes the wall up. The Blizzard's been thrown out at the top. Both of the Diva Bombs finding some value, but the ultimate economy coming out from Enigma manages to win them out this fight. Just now a turn to try and clean up the rest of it. The May wall goes out to stop any reinforcements, and Enigma dictating the pace of that game from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you really see the importance of starting on the right foot there, winning that first team fight. Dynacor never really looked like they had a chance there after losing that first team fight. And sure, Enigma maybe is on paper the better team, but it's also the fact that they were so out of tempo ultimates-wise there. They had to come in, throw a couple of ultis in and close your eyes and hope for the best. Yeah. But that's not really how you want to play Overwatch. Enigma could just control the tempo, as you say, and clean up the kills as they saw fit, and really initiate team fights however they wanted to. Looking at this next round though, compositionally here, more divey composition from Enigma. This is kind of what we expect to see here. You want to control that high ground where the jump pad is. Dynacor going to go with the tried and tested from that last round. Not going to make the mistake of running something a little bit different into this first team fight.
And we did see the Symmetra come out for a second, maybe looking to get a little bit more advantage and using the mobility from the team. Enigma has given up this high ground, and so Dynacor taking up a nice defensive position up there, going to be very strong, but they're going to have to worry about all these off angles. Jelly Doodle on one side, we see Minitake starting to wrap around on the Tracer to get up onto that high ground and pepper them, and Enigma taking a very patient, very clean first play. Minitake goes down in the beginning, and that's the sign for Dynacor to now go in. It's going to be a clash as the two teams meet, and Enigma with their mobile lineup don't want to lose this now. Kiri nearly managing to find that kill on Jelly Doodle, and Stack still trying to find it and does manage to take it out. Still a couple more kills coming from the side of Dynacor, and it looks like Enigma gonna have to back out and give off this first point. They've got some reinforcements, both tanks still on the point, and with this Tesla cannon, can he get there with 6 HP left? He manages to actually get the kill, and Enigma take the first fight.
And you know how far you can go when you can get out of a fight with 6 HP. I think Bruce played a little bit of Winston before, something tells me. But what I like about this composition for Dynacor Gaming is it allows Kiri the space to work with Vertigo. Really should not have been poking there, and Chaotic punishes her, and that's a huge boon for DYG coming to this next team fight.
Oh, 100%, and it's going to allow Kindred to start getting out that ult advantage. And now comes the High Noon from the high ground, takes out Vertigo again, not going to be able to do anything in this fight. And now the charge, not even going to be coming through. Blur goes down in the beginning of this. Dynacor's taking it up. Enigma's still hanging around a little bit, must not be staggered too much in this fight. And with the mobility from Kindred, going to be pressuring everyone far back from Enigma.
Yeah, this is good work from Dynacor. Now they can get set up. This composition quite likes to play defensively. They've got a lot of heroes with decent mobility or survivability. It's just like McCree, who they really need to worry about keeping alive. And if you keep Kiri alive, he's going to click heads. We saw him dueling Jelly Doodle earlier on there and getting the better of him. And anytime you can get the better of Jelly Doodle, you're feeling pretty good about things. So Dynacor can leverage this position now with their composition into some more teamfight victories, hopefully.
Jelly Doodle, though, doing such a good job here, having swapped off the McCree. Blur going a bit far into the front, but he's alone there against very little Dynacor players left. And so Dynacor is going to go down into the beginning of this fight. Just such a clean, quick engagement from Enigma.
I get you looking at the queen right here, so I understand the confusion. But Fluffy really was the key there. An enormous anti-heal over the top there just made all the healing coming out of Dynacor Galing completely null and void. So that really makes it difficult to win a team fight. And you saw as soon as that came down, a swift initiation from Blur and Co. onto the Dynacor Gaming core to eat them all up in a matter of seconds. So a very nice initiation there from the blue team.
And that's been the high point of this. And that double high noon jumping off the bounce pad manages to open up the kill feed here for Dynacor. They're going to drop a bomb on the high ground, just force Dynacor onto the low ground. Blur also doing a lot of work, but gets charged down, shut down. Goodbye, Monkey. You got no chance here. And instead, Dynacor just utilizing that early engagement. They took this on their terms and pushed forwards onto this point. They still have to fight it out. Jelly Doodle Minitake starting to level this out a little bit. Minitake getting a double kill off that, and they managed to not just hold the point, but stabilize well enough to take control. It's now fighting with the bomb on the point, means that the time keeps ticking up to 90% for Enigma, and Dynacor gets pushed back after what should have been their one team fight.
Yeah, that was the mechanical strength there of Enigma. They lost 2 players off that initiation, but still managed to pull it back. It's not over yet, though. Overtime ticks over, and now Dynacor coming back in with a great initiation.
Great start there. They had the static on that Lucio going into the front line, just managing to stall out the point and make sure it gets into overtime. And now they can look to clean it up. Started off with that bomb as well. And again, Dynacor now can take this positional that they want. And they even get the Mercy at the very end of the fight.
Man, they made it look pretty easy. That could have been a disaster. When you have a couple of seconds left to get in and touch, you're kind of frantic. You take these awful team fights where one of your players has to run through the enemy team and hope to just get a foot on point. But they got a couple of clean pickoffs early on and just leveraged that nicely into some good follow-ups. So good work from DYG to stabilize once again. And that's another nice start here. The clock is ticking for Enigma, so they've got to find a team fight win before the clock ticks down.
And Minitake's done well, though. He's managed to duel out the Tracer battle. Kiri not going to be into this fight. And so Enigma has been very good with their initiation timing. Now is a good timing to go in. They've got that big dynamite onto the point. Jelly Doodle staying so far back, able to put in damage. And you talked about how Chaotic would be able to duel out Jelly Doodle. Jelly Doodle got the range, has got this point here for Enigma, and is there even going to be a recontest? Not in time. Instead, Blur just battering around the back lines. Enigma take out control points.
Oh, nice play from both teams, actually. I was a bit concerned after that first round that DYG might end up getting steamrolled, and I guess that still might be the case here, but they showed some signs of life on City Center, and that kind of, won them a few team fights, so in positions where you might not expect them to win, and that's a good sign going forward, because Enigma's looking quite well drilled on Oasis, but when you look at the last match you saw with them against Beastie Boys, they looked incredibly drilled on Oasis. I mean, that was the map they won in that series, and it all kind of fell apart after that. So DYG in with a shot here, but Enigma firmly in the driver's seat for sure.
I think the big thing that this match came down to was initiations. Both teams were able to get pretty good initiations when they had to try and recapture the point. We saw some really creative plays using that high noon and the jump pad to pick off the double kill, some early engagements from something like Minitake to be able to get a pick kill. There were some very interesting diva bombs over the top to open up a kill where the rest of the team was so distracted they got themselves out of position, and then a random bomb into the backline picked off 1 or 2. And so both teams showing that they can take a fight on if they do it on their terms. Now the problem comes that Enigma was able to stall out 1 or 2 of extra of those team fights, especially on that second map where they were going, okay, you initiated, we took the losses, we lost the team fight, or we were put under a lot of pressure in the team fight, but someone like Jelly Doodle and Minitake alone, the 2 of them managed to clean up and turn around that point. And so Enigma able to stabilize from initiations maybe a little bit better right now. It's going to be interesting to see how we go now into Junkertown, I believe.
Yeah, I think, and that's really a sign of a stronger team, is when they can take a sort of middling team fight, a poor initiation, and convert that into a team fight victory. And we saw that a couple of times from Enigma there where they didn't get the best start, but using their mechanics and the communication, they kind of grind the team fight through to a team fight victory. And that's sometimes the way you can unsettle a better team is by forcing a lot of chaos, but Enigma dealt with it well here and managed to grind out a team fight victory or 2 in cases where they were not favored after the initiation. Moving into Junkertown here, though, this this is, of course, the playground of the hit scan DPS, especially this first point. We saw an awesome match here on Friday between OG and Team Gaming, which Team Gaming ended up taking. But it comes down really to the strength of your DPS, and as you mentioned already, Ultras, and the strength of your initiation. Now, we're going to see what color these two teams want to play. I mean, what color... What their roster is going to look like, the flavor of their roster, not the color of the team. That's already been decided. But that's going to make a big difference here. Do Seraphim and Co. want to go for a more brawly composition, a more straightforward composition? Or are they going to go again like they started? What the instinct was to start on something a bit more divey, with some more tempo control, a bit more pick potential, and do it that way. Going to be interesting to see specifically what DYG do here, because of course they're on the back foot in terms of where they are in the series, but also in terms of the relative strengths of the two teams on paper.
You know, we did see Dynacor having some ideas about how they wanted to run on that first point of Oasis. They had, okay, we're going to go with a slightly more mobile team, going with something like the Pharah. Pharah, probably not what you wanted to be running on Junkertown, but they showed that they have other things in the bag that they could run if they wanted to. And that's what I like to see, is they might go, okay, Oasis, the other team had the advantage. They had the more drilled play style that you talked about. And then they showed that they wanted to adapt. Maybe this time they want to try that from the beginning, especially on something like Junkertown, which has a very definite play style to it already. You know, Junkertown is one of the few maps in Overwatch which has a certain set way that you do it. The long sidelines dictate the play to a much larger extent than a lot of the other maps.
Yeah, and when you've got a DPS here, the strength of Kiri, you feel pretty good about sticking him on a Widowmaker and playing it out. But as you get towards the tippy top here of the league table, which is where Enigma currently sits, or near the top, you start to come up against DPS players who can really match Kiri, and J-Doodle is absolutely one of those DPS players. So that's going to be the key duel here, and I think it's going to be up to the tanks on both teams to see how well they can unsettle the two like pivotal hit scan players, the two Widowmakers, and also can they put pressure on the supports, because that's in turn going to put pressure on the Widows as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a pick game. You know, who can open up this at the beginning? Yeah, the duel between Jelly Doodle and Kiri going to prove pivotal, and both of them just wanting to scatter it out for now. No one really wanting to go in too far. Again, you've got Minitake on the Hanzo, a very favored hero for him. And Jelly Doodle does open up this kill shot. Yeah, we do see the dive coming through from Dynacor into the back line, and so they managed to get some sort of leverage themselves. And of course, on the attack, you've got the opportunity of resetting a little bit more. If you do take a bad team fight, but Fluffy, not even going to be the fight.
From Jelly Doodle, did you see that? He had that lined up and he died before he took the shot.
He jumped out into the open there, and it was everyone's sights just went on him, and it just happened to be the Zenyatta who managed to get the clicks going a little bit faster.
Actually a mistake from him as well, because Jelly had just popped sight, so you shouldn't really be peeking when the opposing Widowmaker can literally see through walls. DYG going to come out again here. Not much changing. Chaotic now going to be on a Hanzo though. Feeling like the Echo is a little bit too exposed, and I can't help but agree with him. Speaking of exposed here, Blur going to make the Widowmaker very exposed.
And I like that play. Just shuts down that long sidelines and makes sure that everyone else doesn't have to be super concentrating on that. Also opens up the opportunity for Jelly Doodle. Jelly Doodle going to take down Static, and now Chaotic going to turn around. Chaotic jumping out to the open though. You cannot do that against two hit scan players, or at least two instant pick potential players that we've got on the DPS lineup for Enigma. Still Enigma losing a couple of people, and Blur doing a good job to stall out this payload. They've got the Sigma as well. Very interesting combo of the tanks from this Enigma side, but they're making it work.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you've got Jelly on that hit scan, and you can use the cover, the natural cover, to protect the rest of the players. You stick a shield in front of him if you want and help him win that duel, but it looks like the tanks are going to aggro onto him here, and that's a good call from DYG.
DYG doing a great job of getting into that face. It gives their DPS a little bit more space to work. And now it's going to be the monkey falling from the sky, lifeless, as the rest of Enigma starts putting on some damage. And still, there's a lot of priority being placed by Dynacor onto these DPS. They realize how that mechanical skill is going to come out. But they still need to worry about the rest of the team, though. You cannot afford to forget about someone like Blue, who's got such a number for the rest of the players. And so Enigma taking a lot of pressure on the DPS, but splitting it between the rest of the team.
Yeah, and Blur's doing a very good job of pressuring DYG's backline. So the tanks on the front line aren't getting a ton of support because they're having to worry about the big monkey or the big ball now in their own backline. So it is tough for DYG. They have to figure out how they're going to approach this. Are they going to focus Blur when he comes in, shut him down? We've seen Sombra be quite effective against the ball, altruism. So that could be an option here. Or are they just going to try and force their way through? It looks like it's going to be the latter for now. Oh, there we go.
And a nice flashbang at the end there, but the rest of them, it's a very clean or a very clear initiation coming from Dynacor. You can see that jump from the monkey into the beginning of the team fight, but Enigma is just adapting to it so well.
Yeah, they're in complete control here. They might drop a player or two, but they're bending very effectively as a unit, allowing DYG to get aggressive and shutting down the front line while pressuring the back line with the ball. Compositionally here, look how many ultis they have though. This is DYG's opportunity to come in. Seraphim is discorded up here, so we need to be careful, but they can come in with the ultimates and look to make a big play.
And here comes the nano boosted Winston, but it goes straight into the Transcendence, and Transcendence keeping most people alive, can't help out against it. And now you see Dynacor just dumping ults into this fight. They only have to win one more fight here to try and get this through here, and they seem to have done it, just doing such a good job of when you throw one ult at every player on the other side, they're gonna go down eventually. Now we see a very, very lonesome Fluffy there on the Zenyatta, not able to really stall it out or keep anyone alive, get any picks. And we see Blur spinning to winning, trying to stall this out. They clean him out quite nicely. We see Toxin Socks coming through as the Mercy trying to stall this out, and bought a little bit of time. Now we see the actual okay, Gravitic Flux going for this, trying for it, still nothing. Overtime ticks up, but it was all the way of Dynacor going to the end of that fight. This was just one long drawn out fight with a bit of storm.
Okay, if Vertigo pulled it off, I would have cried tears of joy because she went in there with the Gravitic Flux, hoping to lift every player off the point and then allow the overtime to tick off. So I can't faulter for having the brain for the big players there, but it doesn't come off, and it ends up just kind of end up being quite a big feed towards the end of that. So 50% for pretty much everyone towards ulti on Dynacor Gaming, and nothing to show on the other side. So we might see them keep that momentum going here into the second point, but it's going to be tough fighting into Blur, and they've struggled to really shut down Blur in these team fights to have DYG, so that's going to be key, and obviously not getting picked to this man right here. And it looks like Kiri's taking it upon himself to put the pressure on.
Kiri doing a lot of work into the back line. Oh, a nice shot comes through. Jelly Doodle going to get shut down, and Seraphim going to clean up afterwards with the monkeys. Now Chaotic, unfortunately, not going to be able to stick this out. And Kiri, such a persistent threat in this back line here for the Enigma support.
Nice
the
try.
bomb tries to get stuck there, doesn't manage to get anything out, but still hanging around and making sure that the healing is not getting to the front line here for Enigma. Still, Fluffy going to be working with his DPS to try to stall this out, and it is Enigma stabilizing for the first time in actually about a minute or so.
Yeah, but if I'm Kid, I'm like, boys, what's going on? Because I just watched the two healers heal each other for about 25, 30 seconds there, and nobody died in the rest of the team. So I can't really do much more on the Trace here outside of outright killing the two supports by myself. So Kiri's probably sitting there like, "Ish, guys, so what do you want me to do here?" But that is really the key, making sure the fight doesn't break down. If Kiri's going to go in the back line and really put the pressure on, either he needs to be backed up by Seraphim on the monkey, or they need to initiate onto the front line and put the pressure on while the healers are distracted.
And you talk about Seraphim getting involved in the action, tries now, manages to jump back up, and now he's got the chance to go straight into the Transcendence, so that's going to be almost impossible. That shot from Jelly Doodle, the quick scope down into the front line, manages to get some work, and the Diva Bomb over the top doesn't manage to find anyone. Still Chaotic trying for off angles. Dynacor playing such a scrappy, such a chaotic team file, no pun intended. And Kiri on 22 HP trying to duel it out. Mercy, Toxin Socks pulls out the pistol and shuts it down. And still, Enigma staying quite alive as a team. Dynacor not managing to get the picks with these, what I'm assuming is reliance on mechanical plays, and they cannot manage to secure that street space.
Yeah, that was unfortunate there. I think they'll be happy getting through that second point, but you really feel like they should have won the first team fight on second point when they had that big ult advantage. But Enigma did a good job there, getting set up there, really using the map geometry to their favor. Blur going aggressive there and being a distraction, forcing DYG's own supports to focus on him instead of supporting the DPS and the tanks on the front line. And that really made it difficult for Seraphim to get aggro, for Kiri to get aggro, because they had so much pressure on their own backline. We spoke about it in the OG versus Team Gaming, Defect and I did, and that's dive, right? Dive is the hardest composition to play into because it's really a matter of your backline is crying the whole time. Both backlines are unhappy the whole time, and it's really up to the front lines to get the picks before your own backline dies. So far it's been Enigma doing a very good job of that in this match, but DYG have been showing some signs of life here, which you always want to see. Some intelligent plays like making sure to hold on to the ultimates until they can use them effectively to actually get objectives. And that's what we saw in their first point attack. So hopefully they can hold off Enigma here, or I'm sure Team Gaming is really hoping that, but we're going to have to wait and see what they're able to do.
I feel like Dynacor is maybe just not being able to put enough resources into securing kills right now. The people that they're throwing are not getting the kills cleanly enough and quickly enough to be able to do that. They've got that dive initiation, and the dive is not coming off cleanly enough where they instantly get 1 or 2 picks at the beginning of the fights. And so the rest of it stalls out a little bit. And the fights that they've had to win are the big team fights. That is an aggressive player, though, jumping into the front lines. The rest of your team is nowhere behind you. And so he basically feeds, and then it's going to be poor Kindred coming in behind it, following in with that Kindred Spirit, and now both of the tanks left alone, and the chase on the Mercy is on. Blur trying with this Roadhog, but eventually just corrals her into the rest of the team, and that's the beauty of when you got no tanks to back up your poor lone Mercy. You're just a matter of time at that stage, and Enigma taking a nice clean fight, and well, not even really a fight, just the picks at the beginning through a mistimed initiation, I would say, from Dynacor.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of miscommunication there, and Silver is the captain and presumably the shot caller here, so the team maybe just not ready for that. Okay, there he goes again.
Okay. And that's it. This dive from Dynacor is scrappy again, and this is what cost them in the first round, where they didn't manage to get out the team phase, is that they're not getting the kills together. They need to be going with a couple of people. You know, Kindred, Seraphim, and Kiri together need to be working on a target, get it out early before the threat is able to get back to their own back line. And Enigma, at this stage, just waiting for one person, 2 people to dive in. They collapse on them with 6 and win the fight before it starts.
I'm getting flashbacks to me being on late and in 2019 playing main tank, because that's what it looked like when I was playing. So glad to see not much has changed. You kind of go in there and you die, but they're starting off here with a couple of ultis from Enigma. They want to close out this point and get started on their second point ASAP.
And they've still got a couple in the bag. Here comes another one out of them, just reinforcing this Roadhog being frozen up, and the sticky bomb comes on. Everything being thrown onto this Roadhog. Somehow he's still alive. Now Vertigo coming out with the big brain plays. There's that triple Gravitics Flux kill. Huge play to secure this first map.
Well, she also chooses Player of the Week, so don't be surprised to see that one again on Twitter a little bit later this week. But yeah, very nice play from Enigma there. A little bit scrappy. Dynacor were able to pick up the kills there, but Enigma really never looked like they were in any danger of not winning out. And this man right here has been so uncontested. He picked up a couple of kills to start that last team fight, and he's really had no trouble so far. Seraphim and Co struggling to get onto him. They have now switched to a more brawly composition. I like the call, but they're going to struggle to find targets here the way Enigma are playing.
And Seraphim is not on the monkey anymore, but staying with the same amount of aggression, dives into the front line. In fact, leaves a lot of his players trickling through there behind it, and that opens them up. Jelly Doodle and Miniteg, Fluffy coming through as well with some kills, being able to just instantly shut down anyone who's not behind the Ryan shield. And when your Ryan is running through that aggressively, these guys just have an open firing range.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that you could see exactly what happened there, right? The main tank is going, come, let's go to point, let's move quickly. And then he moves quickly, and the team isn't quite ready to follow up on that movement, and they get kind of caught in no man's land and get split in half by a whole bunch of disgusting crossfire coming out of Enigma. So, yeah, this team, I mean, the series isn't over yet, but you can see this team has some work to do when it comes to drilling and communication specifically. When your main tank is kind of moving on to the beat of his own drum, it makes it very hard for the team to work around that, and it's impossible to say from the outside often if that's Seraphim on the main tank's fault or if it's the team not playing at a fast enough pace, but you got to figure out some way to get everybody on the same rhythm there, else it's going to look like that. There was 3 team fights we saw Seraphim just get evaporated at the beginning of the team fight, or in that last one, just leave his team behind and they get evaporated. So yeah, lots to work on there for DYG.
And it's like we said at the beginning, the team has to be synergized. If you're running a dive, it has to be synergized. If you're going in with a scrappy half dive, you're going 3v6. That's all you're doing, really, at the end of the day. Or however many people you throw forwards. At the beginning, it was kind of 1v6, with Seraphim going a little bit further ahead of his team. That's not a team that you...
0v6, basically, right?
Yeah, you didn't even get close enough to use your Tesla coil at that stage. But you know, that sort of synergy, even when you come out with the Reinhardt is a stalwart in the Overwatch scene of we play here. We play behind this shield. And when the shield runs and then everyone runs behind you and you actually take such a pathing that you jump out in the middle of their team and then your guys like that whole thing was just really scrappy. And DYG now on the match point and Enigma basically ready to punch their tickets into that top 4.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you can see what they were going for. If you're a DYG, you got to do something creative here, right? You got to come up with something different. You can't match Enigma on the comp they want to run. You can't play a sort of stock standard style, and then we're just going to win, at least from what we've seen so far. So you got to do something different. But that one, when you come out and there's a Hanzo on your right-hand side and a Windmaker on your left-hand side, then you know you're in dire straits, right? Because you don't even know where the rest of the players are. So yeah, no, totally agree. That was tough. But we do move now to King's Row. Of course we do. How could we not? And you come to this map and you look at Enigma and you say, how do you lose this map if you're Enigma, right? Because DYG really haven't been showing the kind of synergy or the kind of prowess in an anti-synergistic setting that they're going to beat you. So Enigma just have to keep playing the same game. That's why we're kind of looking at this so much from DYG's point of view, because the onus is on them to make the changes to react to, or to force Enigma to react to their tempo. But DYG, I think, coming out with a good call here. Their dive was, I hesitate to use the word abysmal, but it really didn't work at all on Junkertown. So coming out here with the more stock standard brawly style here, put Kerry on that McCree and allow him to click heads. I think that's the right call, but now you're in a position where you're matching man for man against Enigma on a comp they are no doubt super drilled on, and that's where again you put yourself in a very tough position.
And you talked about the fact that on Oasis, Enigma is very drilled on that. Is there any team in South Africa that isn't wonderfully drilled on King's Row? And when Enigma has been around for so long, you have that drill, you have that synergy, you have the game plans going through here. DYG coming through with a very quick play, though, have a set strategy in mind, and they managed to come around and put a lot of pressure onto the point. Instead, Seraphim, though, going a bit far forward, does manage to get the pick on Vertigo, and so they're trading out some tanks between the two, and Jelly Doodle sits so far in the back, able to start putting some pressure on. Yeah, still Dynacor doing a good job of sitting on this point and gets the freezers up that they need to, with backed up by those bubbles. Some beautiful play coming out between the team of Dynacor, and they're starting to isolate targets. They're starting to shut them down. I'm sorry, your immortality field's not going to be enough to keep your team alive. And Seraphim, having managed to reinforce this fight with that spawn advantage, comes cleaving through with that hammer. And Dynacor had a team fight set up from the beginning, executed it so quickly. I think Enigma was taken off guard there.
And you can see exactly what they were going for on Junkertown there with that last team fight, right? That's what they were looking for. Catch them off guard, come in from an off angle, charge in and see what you can grab. And it worked perfectly there because they're not playing such a split composition this time around on Enigma. But that's good for Dynacor, puts Enigma on the back foot, and now they can get aggressive. I'd actually like to see them get a little bit more aggressive here and really stop them up in that front choke. But they're going to just hold this corner and look to stage the team fight from here.
The high ground now being postured by Enigma is a great position for them. They can start putting damage down, and with that high noon, it's a good opening opportunity. They forced out that immortality field. They put the wall up, and so Enigma now cleaving into the back lines of Dynacor. Dynacor being able to put under a lot of pressure, use the counter May wall to try to buy themselves some space, and they've managed to actually isolate off a couple of targets. Dynacor going to be able to win this team fight out unless they throw it away now, and the rest of Enigma has to run scurrying after a good initiation.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised by that. Kudos to DYG there. That team fight looked a lot better for Enigma for a lot longer, and that's a nice late pick here from DYG's perspective. They're going to have to wait Enigma before they can initiate again, but it looked so good from the start. They forced the lamp out early, they got rid of it, and then started putting the pressure on. They busted Seraphim's shield, which gave Blur the chance, but Blur is nowhere near his ulti in this team fight, so Seraphim getting that ult advantage really made a huge difference there. And now they can get aggressive on this corner. Enigma, that late pick on Fluffy, not even allowing them to get back in.
And now the gravitic flux, graviton surge being thrown out. Still Blur manages to get up his ultimate. He gets frozen up, but he's created the space that he needs for the team, and Minitake clicking heads as he always does, even uses that wall to isolate off the last late target, and Static gonna go down. So Enigma turning around, but they lost the streets phase without, because of that late stagger, like you said, onto Fluffy.
Yeah, they did, but that's kind of what happens, right? The team loses a team fight. It was actually set up by a Great Wall from Chaotic as well, cutting him off, and they get the pick with Kerry here. Now look at this more creative movement here from DYG. Let's see if it works out. So far, 50-50 win rate.
Yeah, and that's a great play to start it off. Kindred dropping a huge graviton surge onto the top of this, and then backed up by Chaotic play. But the turnaround from Enigma comes through. They're able to survive through two of the biggest ultimates in the game to win this fight.
That was all Blur there. He survived through that turns shattered 3, and they just cleaned the fight there. I like what we're seeing out of DYG here, though. They're showing some fire. They're showing them they have a good rhythm here. They're much more drilled on this point than they were on this map, than they were in Junkertown, and it's allowing them to get some proper initiations. And now they can get nice and aggressive straight onto Vertigo.
But they've left Jelly Doodle on this high ground, and Jelly Doodle with this high noon is going to start charging up, finds the back of the shield, gets the triple kill into the back line. That's a huge play, and Enigma just taking that positional advantage. Dynacor not hesitating, not actually taking the time to consider whether they were running into the right place and just try to force the fight.
Yeah, Dynacor's mandate is here. Play as fast as possible and see what happens. And Jelly, with some heads-up play there, your instinct as McCree is to drop down and get behind your tanks, right? You don't want to sit up there by yourself, because if anybody sees you there, they're going to eliminate you pretty quickly. But he stays up there, he's got the high noon, he pops that, gets rid of 3, all by his lonesome, and then from that point it's elementary. The cleanup is there, and now DRG going to come aggressive once again. That's a huge wall.
And the counter wall to actually push him over the top. Vertigo stays alive and gets a counter kill. Now the shadow comes out from Seraphim. Seraphim is going to go down, and no one's able to really follow up here from the side of Dynacor. And the rest of Enigma stays alive thanks to that immortality field. Great play by them, and with that counter wall, they separate off the tank, they separate off the rest of the team, and now they can start getting some late picks into this. So Enigma again flexing so beautifully against that aggressive play coming out from Dynacor.
Yeah, that really is the key. This is the game I wanted to see out of Enigma to restore my faith in them, because that was me, right? Chaotic came up with such a clutch wall there, catching Vertigo out of position again, but then the wall below her to pop her up, and I was going to get back to the rest of the team from Minitake. That's some 100 IQ stuff, and that's what you can expect to see out of a team that's extremely well drilled.
And now Vertigo going to be the one to take this interesting position here with Vertigo finally has managed to get up that Graviton Surge, and Jelly Doodle on the other side has the ultimate as well. Graviton Surge comes out, picks up a couple of them, and the team fight just thought out so beautifully from the side of Enigma. Again, we talk about how well drilled they are. They know who's got the advantage, and they just put them in a good position.
And they're not losing the advantage here either. They've got the Blizzard here. They can expect to get grabbed in the next team fight. It's been a while since the last one. So they're positioning, they should be positioned accordingly, but they've got some counter ultis to work with here. They've got a window of their own if they want to start the fight with the high noon. So let's see how they do it. They've already baited the wall, the window goes down, and now they can get things done.
And the rest of Enigma flexes out. They realize where a dangerous position is. Just their tanks caught into this. The beach comes out to reinforce Enigma. Great heads-up play from Toxin Socks to stay alive. And the counter blizzard comes out from Minitake, throwing that into Dynacor. And Dynacor, never wanting to flex backwards, just runs straight into the waiting arms of Enigma. That trap was beautifully set.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the positioning there of the DPS, especially JD, not caught in the Graviton Surge. Minitech not caught in the Graviton Surge. So they were just able to sit on the side, wait it out, and put the pressure on. Really, really nice play from Enigma here. I'm so impressed with how they're weathering the storm.
Jelly Doodle, he's going to do it twice in a row. He gets stunned up as he drops down, though. He was trying to get too aggressive onto that. The good turnaround comes out, but the rest of Enigma comes from the front lines. They're still in trouble, though. The wall comes out to separate off the rest of Dynacor, and the counter wall comes out. Dynacor, they've been wanting to run forward as much as possible, and this is their opportunity to make it happen. Huge heads-up play coming from Kerry to save the team from Jelly Doodle in the beginning of that, and they've won it out. They've now got one more point to do, and they've got 2 ultimates to do it against basically just the Graviton Surge from Enigma.
Yeah, and they should be fine weathering that one because they've got the immortality field from Donny. They've got a window as well if they want to get aggressive here. They're going to just wait a little bit here. They've popped behind him. No grab.
And that's the grab out of the team fight. He's going to have to come back. Toxin Socks, the double boot. She manages to get them off there, and that could have saved the team fight. Who needs a Graviton when you've got such an amazing Lucio player?
I've seen this before. I've seen this game before, not in my dreams. In Talent Cup 2019, Tox did literally exactly the same thing. We bailed his team out with a huge double or triple boot, but now they can come in with Radiant's grab, hold them on the corner there, and clean up this 3rd point. Really strong play from Enigma there. But Dynacor showing that aggression is a good way to pick up a couple of free points to start it off.
Yeah, no, Dynacor definitely had the aggression down. I feel from the beginning they were ready to go on the front foot, and it was a nice position for them to be in. It came out in the first point. They managed to get the first point of King's Point quite cleanly there. They won the streets phase because of that aggression pushing up and trying to get those late staggered kills like they did.
Yeah.
It was when they got to this corner, that aggression needed to be tempered with a little bit of, hang on, what sort of threats do we need to worry about running into? And Enigma used those threats, and they managed to hold it out at the end there. Through a lot of help from Toxin Stocks, I think that Enigma could have had a much harder last fight there, especially with Vertigo going down early. But Dynacor still doing a good amount of progression. It's going to be up to see how they can use that aggressive play on a defensive structure.
Yeah, see if they can control the tempo in the same way. I just want to go back to that high noon from Jelly Doodle. They got cancelled by Kiri. That's the kind of play I would make if I'm on McCree, right? I see the skulls bright red flashing, ready to go, and my head's like, I just got to get closer. I got to get a better angle to catch all of them, and I'm not looking at any of the players at all. I'm just seeing a mass of bodies, a mass of red skulls, because if you're paying attention, the closest person to him was the McCree directly in front of him. You don't drop down there and try and get everybody else. You just take the shots. But that was just countered nicely by a sound barrier that made it, he had to wait a lot longer to get the skulls. Davido just going to wait things out here. He's going to start on the hit scan, the Widowmaker, but he's going to go up against Kiri on his own Widowmaker. Composition here, a little bit of a different look out of Dynacor Gaming. They're going to lean on the Pharah once again here from Chaotic. Didn't really work at Oasis, but makes a lot of sense here on King's Row as well.
I like the ability to put that pressure into the high ground, and look at this rotations coming out from Enigma and Jelly Doodle just sitting so long, so patiently at the top there, hanging out there waiting. Kiri did spot out the Jelly Doodle on the high ground, and now they've been able to put a little bit of pressure. There goes the shot. Jelly Doodle had been red from the beginning, and it's up to the rest of Enigma to try push in. They've done well with this wall, but Seraphim gets around the outside. Chaotic raining death in from above, puts so much damage here from this Pharah. The charge comes through, and it's a nice charge back towards the spawn, but it is a little bit more of a chaotic fight. Enigma loves these chaotic fights. They're doing them very, very well. Blur going to go down at the beginning, but it's Vertigo. You talked about the peel of this off tank, and what a way to clean up the fight. Just takes out 3 in quick succession and secures the points.
That charge from Seraphim kind of unraveled everything, right? They were kind of looking okay, and then your main tank is all of a sudden in a different time zone from the rest of you, and he ends up on the other side of the map. And then you just saw how exposed the backline was at that point. They pick up a couple of kills and clean things out. Oh, sorry, it wasn't Seraphim who got charged, or who charged. Blur charged him back. So a little bit unfortunate there. But yeah, BYG now on the defense, but a big shadow.
Big shadow to start this off. Blur doing a good job. He did get isolated by that wall, and the wall may have made all the difference. Blur forced that shadow into the fight, and Dynacor now using that aggression. They've never worried about running forward in the beginning, and now setting off a very interesting off angle. Yeah,
creative play more here from them. You just got to crouch, you got to sneak, everybody whisper as they wait for them to come through here. They've seen them now, they've been spotted now. Blur comes through, but that's a big roll.
That's a huge wall to start this up, and the counter wall is attempted to be there, but they've run straight into the face of Dynacor. I don't think they realized they were there, and just meters outside of the spawn, Enigma gets flattened.
This Dynacor team is playing with such an aggressive flair. I mean, take a note of this, guys. Enigma might be the better team on paper, but if you can just put them on the back foot all the time, it's so hard for them to win team fights. It's so hard for them to make plans, but they don't need plans if they're just going to get a double kill here with the player, make it a triple.
And that started off there, the Gravitic Flux being committed there at the end of the fight as well. But it all got started off by Minitech walling them into that little side room, realized that they're coming from an off angle, keeping their heads up. And now the Streets phase is up to Enigma. They've got 3, 4 ultimates, nearly 5 to run this through all the way. And I don't think they're going to need all of them.
On Blur's like, you guys want to play that game? I can play this game as well. And he's got the Earth Shatter ready to go. Yeah, I've seen this game before as well, Altruism, and it's going to be a question of can Dynacor spot him out, or is it going to be Shatter from behind?
Come on, Blur gets the huge shatter. The entire team gets clapped down at that white, and the off angle, a sneaking man in Reinhardt armor is not something you expect to see coming from behind this. And what a way from Enigma to take this out. I don't think Dynacor is going to be able to stabilize here.
And that was team play, team gaming, team play from Enigma there. Enigma chucks in the bomb, and they're all like, oh god. You know, we got to dodge this thing. And then all of a sudden, you don't expect the Ninja Reinhardt in the backline. A huge shatter from Blur. The Immortality Field saves everybody, but not from all the ultimates that came in afterwards.
And Jelly Doodle going to be sitting patiently in the back line. Kerry doesn't manage to get anything out of this high noon. Just the Diva mech and Chaotic going to get pinned down. And so the scrappy fight continues. This time, Seraphim going to be trying to throw down that desperate Earth Shatter. The point has been capped already, so it's not going to be able to get a lot of positional advantage. But they are cleaning up a couple of the fights here just to stall out the time bank more.
That's important for them to stop the momentum. That's actually a critical thing for them to have done here. The point's still stuck on that second point, and now we can get set up on this corner right here that we're moving past. This is where you want to make your long hold. 4 minutes on the clock. This is the place to do it.
Oh, but that's not the way to do it. That Earth Shatter, the Fire Strike through the window manages to take out the Baptiste, and that's most of the healing coming out here for Dynacor. Enigma even managed to boost it up with their own sound barrier. Now they can put on all the aggression that they want. And the Hammer just cleaning up kills left, right, and center. And they had all the recklessness that they could have wanted from that.
Yeah, just close your eyes and press right click a couple of times and then look in the kill feed a couple of seconds later and see what happens. You don't really have to worry about aiming too much there into the center mass of the Dynacor players. But now, setting up nicely on the high ground. This is where you want to position. JD has the ultimate at the ready should he choose to commit it here. So Dynacor, it's going to be a tough fight for them.
And the Immortality Field stays up for just long enough, but still the High Noon comes out and takes out the Lucio. And Enigma putting so much pressure into Dynacor as they trickle out into the back line. And we see that wall goes up. Beautiful way to shut down the McCree, and a good use of the defense matrix as well to shut that down. Now it's going to be up to Dynacor to try and make some sort of amazing plays. They're going to be fighting into the Blizzard. The bomb comes in over the top. It's going to actually take out Seraphim on the Reinhardt, and that's a dwindling resources from Dynacor to try and stabilize it. It's not even have to push to the end. And Enigma going to take their third and final map, securing themselves a top 4 position here in the Raving Mad Gamers. We'll see them in the semifinals next week.
Yeah, man, well deserved, you have to say, Altruism. They definitely looked the better of the two teams in this matchup today. Here we go. This is Tox to the rescue here once again. I hope he gets paid enough for this because he really bailed his team out of this team fight. But of course, you expect nothing left from Mr. Tox in socks here. So really nice play from him and the rest of the Enigma squad. What excited me most about Enigma there was just how effective their team play was. Really, they could rely on a number of different players to pop off at different times, but ultimately their combos were perfectly executed. Some good creativity there as well, coming out of the boys in blue, and I'm excited to see against higher standard competition here what they can actually bring, and that's what we're going to see in the semifinals. In theory, it should be them. Again, the arcane points system, I can't tell you off the top of my head. But in theory, they should be in 4th place, and that means they're going to take on the Randburg Fire Department in the semifinals. And that is some tough competition.
Yeah, you wanted to see how they're going to do against some elite players and what a team to go against. I mean, these guys have not dropped a game so far in this entire tournament. And for longer, if you look at the player roster, these guys are not used to losing. And so Enigma are going to have to come out with some creativity. And I mean, they could be inspired by the creative players that have come out that they saw against them tonight from Dynacor. Dynacor coming through with really nice, different plays. You know, you talked about the difference in skills between them. And when you're going into a team lineup like Enigma, who any one of the players can make that play. We saw great graviton surges coming out from Vertigo and the rest of the peel play that she was able to do. We saw the high noons coming out from Jelly Doodle. The first one beautifully played and tried it again, got a little bit too optimistic on that second one, but still there to make the plays. We saw Jelly Doodle bumping people off the map. Sorry, not Jelly Doodle, Toxin Socks bumping people off the map there. And so every person on Enigma is reliable. And maybe now being able to use that sort of strategy, use that sort of mechanical advantage, use that sort of just good team play that they're able to pull out in creative ways, taking off angles, taking really weird places to set up. You know, we might see Jelly Doodle trying for one of those high noons from the high ground because, let's be fair, we're going to see King's Row. We're almost certainly going to see King's Row.
If it's in the map pool, absolutely.
Right? They've now come up with some new ways of approaching this map, and it's nice to see this revitalization of the meta for at least King's Row, if nothing else.
Yeah, you know, fingers crossed we see them bring that creativity into their match against Randburg, because I think they're going to need it against Randburg. Randburg is, if you want to play standard against Randburg, firstly, they don't play standard, so good luck with that. But secondly, if you want to take a mechanics match, you don't want to do that against Randburg. You really don't want to be in a position where you're trying to win 6 individual 1v1s, because they're just going to win. That's the game they want to play. If you're going to play that, they're going to say, thank you very much. We'll take the 2.5k home. That's another little bit of cash in our bank accounts here. So it is going to be a tough one for Enigma up against Randburg. But what I saw today has kind of revitalized my view on this Enigma team. Of course, DYG, not the tippy top of top teams in South Africa, but still, you got to put this team away if you're going to be a top 4 team, and they put them away quite effectively. And, you know, say what you will about their performance on King's Row, yes, they put under pressure, but once they stabilized, they never really looked like they were going to lose, you know. DYG got a couple of good team fights there with some hyper-aggressive play, but that play doesn't work forever, and you can really see that. And Enigma weathered the storm. They lost a couple of fights, but identified what was happening and matched them at times with their own aggression, or flexed back, absorbed the energy, and then fired back when they were ready to do so. So that fills me with hope for this Enigma squad going forward.
It's nice to hear, considering at the beginning you were not sure how well Enigma had managed to pull themselves up together and come together as a team. Really nice play from them coming out there and having to adapt on the fly to it, and they did that very well. We talked about the initiations in the beginning, and they were having some very nice initiations, but could they flex back? And they used it to Oasis, and they managed to absorb some of the team fights. This one looked a lot better in terms of, okay, hang on, they're going to be coming in. We know that they've got something like a Graviton Surge. Can we bait out enough people to make them commit the Graviton Surge, get a couple of picks before the fight started, so that even if they do drop the Graviton Surge, we can survive through it? You know, being able to play through what threats could be coming through and absorb those. And they did that pretty well. I think Enigma can be proud of the way that they were able to take team fights that they were at a disadvantage and turn it around. Still a lot of life coming out from Dynacor, and it's a sad thing to see them drop out of the tournament now. Really nice play, and you can see why they earned themselves at least as high as they did on the table, because I'm sure that they took a lot of teams by surprise, and that's sometimes all it takes is just having that initiation that another team doesn't expect.
Yeah, they're going to be ruining that loss against Overtime, though. I don't know, maybe Overtime has made some serious upgrades since the last time we saw them. We haven't seen them this year yet. But on paper, the historical performance of those teams would suggest that DYG should be comfortably favored there. So that is really going to be the disappointing loss for them, because if they win that, they're 4-3 or something, I don't know. Something along those lines, and they can actually really put up a fight towards that top 4 slot, but not able to do so, unfortunately. But absolutely, they can be happy with. But we also have to look at the first 2 maps, especially Junkertown, and say, this is where your focus has got to be, fixing this up. When you're on Song, you look pretty good, right? Kings Row, everyone kind of knows what's going on. You're all playing at Seraphim's pace, where you close your eyes and run in and open them when the fight's over and see what the kill feed looks like. But on Junkertown, that did not work. The map was too wide open. The rotations were not executed effectively enough, and the dive especially was quite lacking. So that's where you watch this game back and you say Enigma's a better team, sure, but we made a couple of very, very critical and obvious mistakes that we can work on going forward.
And that has, unfortunately, they're going to have to work on that in the next tournament. They are out now. We have got our final top 4 teams. It is going to be Randburg Fire Department taking that top position going into our semifinals next week. Second position is Beastie Boys. OG Kintsugi going to be taking up that third spot, and Enigma joining it out to round off our top 4. It's going to be very excited to see them next weekend as we take on our semifinals. The following weekend, our grand finals for that 4,000 Rand prize pool that we've managed to put together for this tournament. A big shout out to Raving Mad Gamers and PC International for bringing that to us here. We hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Sun Phoenix, any play of the match, any final thoughts?
Play of the match, I think for me it's a tough one, but I'm going to go with Vertigo. I think she stood out to me today. A couple of times getting caught out position on King's Row, but otherwise expert peeling as usual. She found a couple of huge gravitic fluxes and otherwise really helped keep the team in the battle sometimes when they were falling behind a little bit. So really impressed by her. You could pick any player on Enigma, I think, and comfortably call them player of the match, but she's the one I've decided to go with here. Final thoughts for me, excited to see the top 4 teams duke it out. This is the top 4 on paper, the 4 teams you've just named. I'm excited especially for Beastie Boys versus OG. I think that should be an awesome matchup because that OG team is looking hot, and Auntie just got GM now earlier today, so he's a GM level player to join alongside Swoon. And I think that's hopefully going to give them the energy to fight through a very tough PC Boys team who's not been looking unassailable recently. So I'm super excited for that matchup. And just in general, seeing if anybody can take the fight to Randburg.
If you guys want to keep up with that action, make sure to join in next weekend and keep up to date with the social medias, of course, that we always punt at the end of these sort of things. Making sure to keep up. You'll be able to get all the details for those streams because we would love to see you in those ones. Of course, you can follow myself at Ultrism and at Sun Phoenix on Twitter. I'm sure we'll be raring to get involved in those if we can. And big shout out, of course, to the Peeps today. He was the one bringing you productions and the cows are Overwatch. Twitter, Sun Phoenix.
At Zeta Overwatch on Twitter. Managed by our player of the match, I'll have you know as well.
There we go. And let's be fair, if it is Vertigo coming through with that the player of the match with the Stigma Gravitic Flux, I think it's a feasible play of the week that we'd like to see there. Big shout out to Trizzle who won last week there with the 4K on Widowmaker. Great play. Would love to see him coming through. Unfortunately, Team Gaming is out as well. So the rest of the players left involved, it's only going to get better. I mean, the play of the week that we've seen for the last couple of weeks, that could just be standard plays coming out in next weekend and the following weekend's finals. So, guys, we'll see you for those. It has been a fantastic pleasure, as always, to bring you this action, and we'll see you next weekend for the semifinals.